Captain Marcus Chen had seen a lot of strange things during his 15 years exploring the outer rim of known space, but nothing quite like the artifact his team had just pulled from the wreckage of an ancient ship, floating in the debris field of Kepler 442c. The object was roughly the size of a human torso, made from some kind of crystalline material that seemed to shift between deep purple and brilliant gold depending on the angle of light hitting it. "Sir, the energy readings are off the charts," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim, her scanner beeping frantically as she waved it over the artifact. "Whatever this thing is, it's definitely not human technology." Marcus nodded, his weathered face creased with concentration as he examined the object more closely. The surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move and flow like liquid mercury, but when he reached out to touch them, they felt solid as diamond.
"How old do you think that ship was?"
"Based on the metal composition and decay patterns, I'd estimate at least 50,000 years," replied Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's xenoarchaeologist. "Maybe older. The hull design doesn't match any known civilization in our databases." The bridge of the research vessel Endeavour hummed with quiet activity as the crew worked to catalog their find. This was exactly the kind of discovery that Marcus had spent his career hoping for. Genuine evidence of an advanced alien civilization that predated human space travel by millennia. The artifact sat in the center of the main lab table, secured behind a containment field that flickered with blue energy. "Captain, you need to see this," called out Ensign David Park from his station at the communications array. "I'm picking up some kind of signal emanating from the artifact. It's not random. There's definitely a pattern here." Marcus moved to Park's station, watching as complex waveforms scrolled across the screen. The signal was unlike anything in their databases, but there was an underlying mathematical structure that suggested intelligence. "Can you decode it?" "Working on it, sir. The universal translator is having trouble with the base frequency, but I think I can isolate the core message." Park's fingers flew across his console, adjusting parameters and running the signal through various filters. After several minutes, he looked up with excitement. "Got it, sir. This is incredible. The message is, it's a greeting, and it's directed specifically at us." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying this thing knew we were coming?" "It seems that way, sir." The message reads, "Greetings, travelers from the third planet of the Sol system. Your arrival has been anticipated. Approach the vessel of Zarathul and receive the gift that awaits." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her analysis of the artifact. "Captain, the energy patterns in this object are becoming more active. Whatever's inside wants to come out." Marcus weighed their options carefully. First contact protocols were clear. Any evidence of alien intelligence was to be reported immediately to Earth Command. But they were 6 months from the nearest communication relay, and this could be the discovery of the century. More importantly, the message seemed to indicate that whoever created this artifact had been waiting specifically for humans to find it. "All right, people, we're going to proceed but carefully. Full recording protocols are now in effect. Dr. Vasquez, I want every scanner we have trained on that artifact. Kim, prepare the isolation chamber. If something comes out of there, I want it contained." The next few hours passed in tense preparation. The artifact was moved to the ship's most secure laboratory, surrounded by every monitoring device the Endeavour carried. Marcus stood before the containment field with his senior staff, all of them wearing full environmental suits as a precaution. "Energy levels are spiking," reported Kim. "Whatever's about to happen, it's happening now." The artifact began to glow with brilliant white light, so intense that their helmet visors automatically darkened to protect their eyes. The crystalline surface started to crack, not breaking apart but opening like a flower blooming and fast forward. Tendrils of pure energy spiraled out from the opening, coalescing into a roughly humanoid shape about 2 meters tall. When the light faded, the crew of the Endeavour found themselves face to face with the most beautiful being any of them had ever seen. She appeared feminine, with features that seemed to blend the best aspects of every human ethnicity into something that was both familiar and utterly alien. Her skin had a faint luminescent quality, and her eyes were the deep purple of nebulae seen from afar. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of starlight itself, constantly shifting and moving as if blown by cosmic winds. "I am Zarathul," she said, and her voice resonated not just through the air but somehow directly in their minds. I have waited eons for your kind to find me. You are the third species to discover my vessel, but the first to approach with curiosity rather than greed. Marcus stepped forward, his training taking over despite the extraordinary circumstances. I am Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth vessel Endeavor. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding. Zarathul smiled, and the expression was somehow both ancient and innocent. I know why you are here, Marcus Chen. Your species stands at a crossroads, as all sapient races eventually must. You have begun to explore the stars, but you have not yet learned the true costs of such ambition. I offer you what I have offered only twice before in my long existence: 3 wishes to be used as you see fit. The bridge crew exchanged glances, their minds racing. This was so far beyond their first contact protocols that there wasn't even a procedure to follow. Dr. Vasquez was the first to find her voice.
What's the catch?
In human mythology, wishes from genies always come with unexpected consequences. Wise words from your scholar, Zarathul replied. There is indeed a price, though not what you might expect. Each wish granted costs me a portion of my remaining existence. After the 3rd wish is fulfilled, I will fade from this reality forever. This is why I do not offer such gifts lightly. Marcus felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. The first contact with an alien intelligence was momentous enough, but this being was offering them power beyond imagination. The responsible thing would be to refuse, to report back to Earth Command and let the politicians and generals decide how to proceed. But as he looked into Zarathul's ancient eyes, Marcus realized that this opportunity might never come again. Whatever choices they made here could determine the future of the human race among the stars. Marcus spent the next 3 hours in deep conversation with his senior staff, while Zarathul waited patiently in the containment field. The being seemed content to observe their discussions, occasionally answering technical questions about her nature and capabilities, but never pushing for a decision. Her patience was somehow more unsettling than any pressure might have been. Captain, we need to think about this logically, Dr. Vasquez argued during their 4th strategy session. This entity claims to have existed for eons and granted wishes to other species. What happened to those civilizations? Where are they now? Lieutenant Kim nodded in agreement. And why us? Out of all the species in the galaxy, why did she specifically mention waiting for humans? We've barely been in space for 3 centuries. Marcus had been wondering the same things. When he posed these questions to Zarathul, her expression grew thoughtful and slightly sad. The first species to find me were the Veltar, approximately 47,000 of your years ago. They were an aggressive, warlike people who had just developed faster than light travel. Their 3 wishes were for ultimate weapons, invincible armor, and the power to conquer any world they chose. What happened to them? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. They achieved everything they wished for, Zarathul replied simply. Within 2,000 years, they had conquered half the galaxy. Within 5,000, they had eliminated all opposition. And within 10,000 years, with no enemies left to fight and no challenges left to overcome, their civilization collapsed into decadence and civil war. The last of their kind died out 20,000 years ago. The crew exchanged uncomfortable glances. Ensign Park spoke up nervously. And the second species? The Kethamori were scientists much like yourselves. They found me 8,000 years later, after studying the ruins left by the Veltar. They were cautious, thoughtful people who wished for perfect knowledge of the universe, immortality for their greatest minds, and the ability to prevent any suffering among their people. That sounds noble, Dr. Vasquez said carefully. Indeed it was. But perfect knowledge brought perfect despair when they learned the true nature of entropy and the inevitable heat death of the universe. Immortality became a curse when their greatest thinkers realized they would witness the end of everything, and their attempt to prevent all suffering led them to create a society so controlled, so sterile, that their people lost the will to live. The last Kethamori shut themselves away in stasis pods rather than face another day of their perfect, joyless existence. Marcus felt a chill run through him. You're telling us that granting wishes destroyed both civilizations. I granted exactly what they asked for, Zarathul said with infinite sadness. I do not twist words or create malicious interpretations. The tragedy is that most beings do not truly understand what they want, or they fail to consider the full implications of getting it. This is why I have waited so long for the right species to find me. What makes you think humans are different? Kim challenged. Zarathul's smile returned, though it was touched with melancholy. I have been observing your species since you first looked up at the stars. The Veltar conquered for glory and power. The Kethmori sought knowledge for its own sake. But humans explore for the simple joy of discovery. You create art for beauty, not utility. You help strangers with no expectation of reward. You are the first species I have encountered that consistently chooses hope over fear. Marcus paced the laboratory, his mind racing through possibilities and consequences. The weight of representing all humanity in this decision was crushing. What would you wish for if you were in our position? The question seemed to surprise Zarathul. I have never been asked that before. If I were mortal, facing the vast unknown of the universe with such limited time and resources, she paused, considering. I think I would wish to become better than I am. Not perfect, for perfection is stagnation, but better. Always growing, always learning, always reaching for something higher. It was then that Marcus realized what his first wish needed to be. The revelation struck him like lightning, so obvious and yet so revolutionary that he could barely believe he hadn't thought of it immediately. He called his staff together for one final meeting. I've made my decision, he announced. But I need all of you to understand something first. This isn't just about our ship or our mission. Whatever we do here could affect the entire future of human civilization. We have to think bigger than ourselves, Dr. Vasquez frowned. What are you proposing, Captain? I'm proposing that we make wishes that benefit not just humanity, but all life in the universe. That we try to break the pattern that destroyed the previous two civilizations. Kim looked skeptical. That's a noble sentiment, sir, but how do we avoid the traps that caught the others? By wishing for things that make us better rather than things that make us more powerful, Marcus replied. By thinking about growth instead of dominance, about wisdom instead of knowledge, about connection instead of control. An hour later, Marcus stood before Zarathul once again. The being's luminous eyes studied him with ancient patience, but he could sense her curiosity about what he had decided. I am ready to make my first wish, Marcus announced formally. Speak it clearly. Marcus Chen of Earth, I will grant exactly what you request. Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would echo through history. I wish for every human being throughout all time and space to possess the ability to truly understand and empathize with the perspectives of others while still maintaining their own identity and free will. Zarathul's eyes widened in genuine surprise. In all her eons of existence, she had never heard a wish quite like this one. The Veltar had wished for power over others. The Kethmori had wished to understand the universe. But this human was wishing to understand other people. You wish for your species to develop enhanced empathy and perspective-taking abilities? She asked, wanting to be absolutely certain she understood correctly. Yes, but not forced empathy that overwrites individual choice. I want humans to be able to truly see through other eyes, to understand different viewpoints while still being able to disagree and make their own decisions. I want us to be better at communicating, at resolving conflicts, at working together toward common goals. For the first time since awakening from her crystalline prison, Zarathul smiled with something approaching delight. This is unexpected. You seek not to gain power over others but to better connect with them. Very well, Marcus Chen, your wish is granted. Energy flowed from Zarathul's form, spreading outward in waves that passed harmlessly through the ship's hull and continued expanding at faster than light speed. As the wave passed through each crew member, they gasped in wonder as their minds suddenly expanded, allowing them to perceive emotional and intellectual perspectives they had never been able to access before. Marcus could suddenly feel the excitement and fear of his crew, but also their deep respect for his decision. Dr. Vasquez was experiencing a profound sense of scientific wonder, mixed with maternal protectiveness, toward the knowledge they were gaining. Lieutenant Kim felt a warrior's respect for a bold tactical decision, while Ensign Park was simply amazed at being part of something so monumentous. But the real impact was already spreading across human space. On Earth, in the colonies, aboard every human vessel and station, people were suddenly finding themselves able to truly understand others in ways they never had before. Marriages grew stronger as partners finally grasped each other's deepest feelings. Conflicts began resolving as people could see past their differences to shared underlying values. Scientists found themselves able to collaborate more effectively, while artists discovered new depths of emotional expression. Zarathul had grown noticeably dimmer, a portion of her essence used to power the wish. but her expression was one of satisfaction rather than regret. Your first wish has been granted, Marcus Chen. Choose your second carefully, for I sense your species stands on the verge of something remarkable. The effects of Marcus's first wish rippled across human civilization faster than anyone could have anticipated. Within hours of the empathic enhancement taking effect, the United Earth Council was receiving reports of miraculous diplomatic breakthroughs from every corner of human space. The decades-long trade dispute between Mars and the Europa Mining Consortium was resolved in a single afternoon, when both sides suddenly understood each other's underlying concerns. The civil unrest on Kepler 438b ended when protesters and security forces realized they were fighting for the same basic goals of safety and prosperity. But it wasn't just politics that changed. On the research vessel Endeavour, Dr. Vasquez found herself working with unprecedented efficiency, as she could instantly understand the perspectives and insights of her colleagues. Lieutenant Kim discovered she could anticipate her captain's tactical thinking with startling accuracy, while Ensign Park realized he had been unconsciously holding back ideas because he hadn't understood how much the senior officers valued his input. Marcus watched these changes with a mixture of satisfaction and growing awareness of the enormous responsibility he still carried. 2 wishes remained, and the choice of how to use them would shape humanity's future among the stars. But now, with his enhanced empathy, he could feel Zarathol's emotional state more clearly than before. The ancient being was pleased with his first wish, but there was also something else, a complex mixture of hope and fear that spoke to experiences spanning eons. You can sense my feelings now, Zarathul observed, noticing his attention. This is good. Understanding between different forms of life is the foundation of true wisdom. I can feel your hope, Marcus said carefully, but also your fear. What are you afraid of? Zarathul was quiet for a long moment, her luminous form flickering slightly as she gathered her thoughts. I fear that even your remarkable first wish may not be enough to save your species from the great trial that approaches. The universe is not a gentle place, Marcus Chen. There are forces among the stars that do not value life as you do. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her instruments. What kind of forces? The Veltar were not the only conquering species to emerge from their home world. Even now, the hegemony of Zephyr expands across the far rim of the galaxy, consuming entire civilizations to fuel their industrial machines. They have existed for over 1 million years, perfecting the art of warfare and subjugation. Your enhanced empathy will mean nothing to beings who view all other life as either resources or obstacles. The bridge crew fell silent as the implications sank in. Marcus felt their fear, but also their determination. Humanity had always faced its greatest challenges by coming together and fighting for something larger than themselves. How long do we have? Marcus asked. At their current rate of expansion, the Zephyr will reach the edge of human space in approximately 500 of your years. But they send scout fleets ahead of their main forces, and those could arrive much sooner, perhaps within a century. Lieutenant Kim stepped forward, her military background evident in her posture. What are their capabilities? How do they fight? They are masters of both technology and biological warfare. Their ships are grown rather than built, adapting to any threat they encounter. Their soldiers are engineered for specific combat roles with no regard for individual life or suffering. Most importantly, they learn from every battle, incorporating the best strategies and technologies of their defeated enemies into their own forces. Marcus felt the weight of his second wish pressing down on him. His first wish had united humanity through understanding, but that wouldn't be enough against an enemy that had perfected conquest over 1 million years. They needed something more, something that would allow humans to not just survive but thrive in a hostile universe. Tell me about the other civilizations that faced the hegemony, he said. How did they fail? Zarathul's expression grew even more sorrowful. Most fell within decades of first contact. The hegemony would arrive with overwhelming force, destroy the defending fleets, and begin the systematic harvesting of all useful resources, including intelligent beings who were converted into specialized workers. Those civilizations that lasted longer typically did so by hiding or running. But the hegemony is patient. They would eventually be found and consumed. Did any species ever defeat them? Dr. Vasquez asked. Only one came close. The Etheric Collective was a union of 12 different species that had learned to share knowledge and resources across vast distances. They held the hegemony at bay for nearly 3,000 years through superior coordination and technological innovation. But eventually, even they fell when the hegemony learned to mimic their collaborative abilities. Marcus began to pace, his enhanced empathy allowing him to feel the collective thoughts of his crew as they processed this information. They were afraid but not defeated. There was something quintessentially human about their response to seemingly impossible odds. Instead of despair, they felt defiant determination. What would you do if you were human? Marcus asked Zarathul, how would you prepare for this threat? I have pondered this question for millennia, she replied. The hegemony succeeds because they treat warfare as engineering. Systematic, logical, predictable. But you humans have something they do not: unpredictability. You make intuitive leaps that defy logic. You create art in the middle of battlefields. You sacrifice yourselves for strangers. These traits confuse and frustrate enemies who expect rational behavior. Dr. Vasquez looked thoughtful. So our best defense might be to become more human, not less? Perhaps. But you would also need the tools to make your uniqueness matter on a galactic scale. Marcus felt the pieces clicking together in his mind. His first wish had enhanced humanity's greatest social strength, their ability to understand and connect with others. His second wish needed to enhance their greatest creative strength. I know what my second wish will be, he announced. But first I need to understand something. When you grant these wishes, can you see the potential outcomes? Do you know how they'll affect the future? Zarathul shook her head. I see only possibilities, not certainties. The future remains unwritten, shaped by countless choices yet to be made. This is why your wishes matter so much. They don't guarantee success, but they alter the fundamental nature of what becomes possible. Marcus nodded, finally understanding the true weight of his decision. He wasn't just making wishes, he was shaping the very essence of what humanity could become. For my second wish, he said formally, I wish for every human to possess unlimited creative potential, the ability to imagine, innovate, and bring into existence solutions that have never been conceived before, while maintaining the wisdom to use this creativity responsibly. Zarathul's eyes blazed with sudden intensity. You wish to unleash the full creative power of human imagination? This could change everything. Exactly, Marcus replied. If we're going to face impossible odds, we need to become capable of impossible solutions. Very well. But know that creativity without constraint can be as dangerous as any weapon. Are you certain your people have the wisdom to handle such power? Marcus thought of his first wish, of the enhanced empathy now connecting every human across space and time. They'll understand each other better than ever before. That understanding will guide their creativity toward building rather than destroying. Zarathul smiled, and for the first time, it was a smile of pure joy. Then let it be so. Energy flowed from her again, this time with such intensity that the ship's lights flickered. As the wave of power spread outward, every human being in existence felt their minds expanding in a completely different way. Where the first wish had opened their hearts to others, the second opened their minds to infinite possibility. On Earth, a child in Mumbai suddenly understood how to solve her city's water crisis. In the Alpha Centauri system, an engineer visualized a new type of engine that could travel between stars in days rather than months. Aboard research stations throughout human space, scientists began conceiving technologies that seemed to violate known physics but somehow made perfect sense. But perhaps most importantly, artists and dreamers found themselves able to create works of such beauty and meaning that they moved people to tears across cultural and linguistic barriers. The enhanced empathy from the first wish allowed everyone to understand these creations at a profound level, while the unlimited creativity of the second wish provided an endless wellspring of inspiration. Marcus could feel it happening. Humanity was transforming into something unprecedented, a species capable of both infinite understanding and infinite creation. But as Zarathul grew even dimmer, he realized that his final wish would need to be the most important of all. The transformation of human civilization accelerated beyond all predictions. Within weeks of the second wish taking effect, breakthrough technologies began emerging from every human settlement. On Mars, atmospheric processors that had taken decades to design were suddenly improved 100-fold by a team of engineers who could visualize molecular interactions with perfect clarity. In the asteroid belt, miners developed new extraction techniques that seemed to bend the laws of physics but produced impossible yields with minimal environmental impact. But the changes weren't just technological. Artists across human space were creating works that transcended previous understanding of beauty and meaning. Musicians composed symphonies that could move listeners to perfect emotional resonance regardless of their cultural background. Writers crafted stories that seemed to speak directly to the human soul. Scientists found themselves able to explain complex theories through poetry and painting, making advanced knowledge accessible to everyone. Most remarkably, the combination of enhanced empathy and unlimited creativity was generating solutions to problems that had plagued humanity for centuries. On Earth, the climate crisis was being solved not through any single technology, but through thousands of small, elegant innovations that worked in perfect harmony. Poverty and hunger were disappearing as people developed new ways to share resources and create abundance from previously overlooked opportunities. Marcus watched reports streaming in from across human space, feeling a mixture of wonder and growing concern. The changes were magnificent, but they were also accelerating. Humanity was evolving so rapidly that he could barely keep track of the developments. Children born after the wishes were showing capabilities that seemed almost supernatural, perfect emotional intelligence combined with creative abilities that defied explanation. They're becoming something new, Dr. Vasquez observed, studying the data from her instruments. The neural activity patterns I'm seeing in the reports from Earth, they're unlike anything in the medical literature. It's as if the human brain is restructuring itself to accommodate these new abilities. Zarathul, now noticeably dimmer after granting 2 wishes, nodded slowly. Evolution does not always occur gradually. Sometimes a species makes a quantum leap into something unprecedented. Your people are becoming what the universe has never seen before. Beings capable of infinite empathy and infinite creativity working in perfect harmony. Lieutenant Kim looked troubled. But is that necessarily good? With this much power, even well-intentioned actions could have massive unintended consequences. It was a valid concern, and Marcus felt it echoing through his enhanced empathy connection with people across human space. The new creative abilities were so powerful that even minor innovations were reshaping entire industries overnight. Some communities were struggling to adapt to the rapid pace of change, while others were worried about losing their traditional ways of life. There's something else, Ensign Park added quietly. I've been monitoring long-range communications and we're starting to pick up signals from other species. Word is spreading about what's happening with humanity. Some of the messages sound concerned. Marcus frowned. What kind of concerns? Species that have been observing human expansion are noting the sudden acceleration in our technological development. A few of the closer civilizations are requesting information about our rapid evolutionary leap. Others are asking if humanity poses a threat to galactic stability. Zarathul's expression grew thoughtful. This was inevitable. Rapid change creates fear, even when that change is beneficial. The galaxy has seen species transform before, and not all transformations have been positive. Your neighbors are wondering if humanity is about to become another conquering force. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her analysis. Actually, the data suggests the opposite. Crime rates in human space are dropping to nearly 0. Conflicts between settlements are being resolved through unprecedented cooperation. If anything, we're becoming less aggressive, not more. But appearances can be deceiving, Marcus realized. From the outside, all they see is a species that suddenly gained incredible power. They don't understand that our first wish made us more empathetic, not more aggressive. The implications were troubling. Humanity was becoming something beautiful and unprecedented. But their rapid evolution was making other species nervous. In a galaxy where powerful civilizations like the hegemony of Zephyr existed, being perceived as a threat could be just as dangerous as actually being one. What happened to species that evolved rapidly in the past? Marcus asked Zarathul. Most were destroyed by coalitions of older civilizations who feared what they might become, she replied sadly. The galaxy is ancient, and change is often seen as a threat to established order. Even when the evolving species had no aggressive intentions, fear would drive their neighbors to preemptive action. Marcus felt a chill run through him. His wishes had been intended to make humanity better, but they might have inadvertently painted a target on the entire species. He could feel through his empathic connection that humans across space were beginning to sense the growing tension from their alien neighbors. How long do we have before this fear turns into action? Lieutenant Kim asked. Unknown. Zarathul replied. But galactic coalitions have formed in as little as a few decades when the threat was perceived as sufficiently urgent. Your rapid development will not go unnoticed for long. Marcus began to pace again, his mind racing through possibilities. His first two wishes had given humanity incredible gifts, but they had also created a new kind of danger. His final wish needed to address this threat, while preserving everything good that had been accomplished. "Tell me about the species that survived rapid evolution," he said. "Were there any?" "Only one that I know of," Zarathul said slowly. "The ethereals of the Magellan cluster. But their survival came at a great cost. They abandoned physical existence entirely, becoming beings of pure energy who could no longer interact meaningfully with material reality. They avoided being seen as a threat by becoming incapable of physical action." "That's not an option for us," Dr. Vasquez said firmly. "Humanity's strength has always been our connection to the physical world, our ability to build and create and explore." Marcus nodded in agreement. His third wish couldn't be about escaping the problem. It needed to solve it in a way that preserved humanity's essential nature while addressing the legitimate concerns of other species. What if the fear itself was the real problem? He mused aloud. What if instead of trying to hide our evolution or escape it, we found a way to help other species understand what we've become? Anson Park looked confused. "How would that work? We can barely understand it ourselves." "Through demonstration," Marcus realized suddenly. "Not through words or diplomacy, but through actions that show beyond doubt that our evolution has made us helpful, not harmful." Zarathul's eyes brightened with interest. "Explain your thinking." Marcus felt the pieces falling into place in his mind, guided by both the empathy and creativity of his previous wishes. "The galaxy is full of problems that individual species can't solve alone. Dying stars, plague worlds, cosmic disasters that threaten entire sectors. What if humanity became the species that rushed toward these problems instead of away from them? What if we used our new abilities not to dominate or expand but to heal and help on a galactic scale?" Dr. Vasquez caught on immediately. "A demonstration of benevolent intent through action. If we consistently use our power to help others, it becomes much harder to justify seeing us as a threat. But that would require enormous sacrifice," Lieutenant Kim pointed out. "We'd be putting ourselves in danger to help strangers who currently fear us." "Which makes it the perfect demonstration of our true nature," Marcus replied. "Fear drives species to aggression and self-protection. But humans, when we're at our best, we run toward danger to help others, even when they don't trust us." He could feel the rightness of this approach resonating through his empathic connection. Across human space, people were beginning to understand what their evolution was truly meant to accomplish. They weren't becoming a new form of conqueror. They were becoming healers on a cosmic scale. Marcus turned to face Zarathul directly. "For my third and final wish, I want the power to help any being anywhere in the universe to heal from any form of harm or suffering. Not to control them or change their fundamental nature, but to give them the opportunity to become the best version of themselves." Zarathul stared at him in absolute amazement. "You wish to make your entire species into cosmic healers? To grant them the power to repair damage at any scale? From individual trauma to planetary destruction?" "Yes, and I want this power to be completely voluntary, both for the humans using it and the beings receiving help. No one can be forced to help or be helped. But for those who choose it, the option will always be available." For a long moment, Zarathul was completely silent. When she finally spoke, her voice was filled with something Marcus had never heard before: genuine awe. "In all my eons of existence, no being has ever wished for the power to heal rather than to harm. This changes everything I thought I knew about the nature of sapient life." Zarathul's form began to blaze with the brightest light yet as she prepared to grant the final wish. But before she could begin, she paused and looked directly at Marcus with an expression of profound curiosity. "Before I grant this wish, I must ask, do you understand what you are truly requesting?" "The power to heal any form of harm or suffering is perhaps the greatest responsibility that can be given to any species. With such ability comes the weight of every choice not to act. Every moment of suffering that continues because intervention was not chosen." Marcus felt the gravity of her words, but also the certainty that this was the right path. Through his enhanced empathy, He could sense the agreement of his crew and feel the resonance of approval from humans across space, who were somehow connected to this moment of decision. "I understand," he replied. "But humanity has always carried the weight of choosing when to help and when to step back. This wish doesn't change that responsibility. It just gives us better tools to help when we choose to. And the voluntary nature of this power, you truly wish for no being to be compelled either to give or receive aid? Absolutely. Force corruption, no matter how well-intentioned. True healing can only come from choice." Zarathul nodded slowly, and Marcus could see something like relief in her ancient eyes. "Then I grant your final wish, Marcus Chen of Earth. May your species use this gift wisely." The energy that flowed from Zarathul this time was different from the previous wishes. Instead of the sharp intensity of transformation, it was warm and gentle, like sunlight after a long winter. As it spread outward, every human being felt a new awareness settle into their consciousness, an intuitive understanding of how to perceive and repair damage at every conceivable level. The effects were immediate and astounding. On medical stations throughout human space, doctors suddenly found themselves able to see injury and illness as patterns that could be gently corrected. But it went far beyond physical healing. Psychologists could help patients resolve trauma by showing them how to rebuild damaged neural pathways, while engineers could sense the stress patterns in damaged structures and guide repairs with impossible precision. Most remarkably, the healing power extended to environmental damage. On worlds scarred by industrial pollution, humans began to understand how ecosystems wanted to repair themselves and learned to remove the obstacles preventing natural recovery. Dying stars could have their fusion processes stabilized through careful interventions that worked with stellar mechanics rather than against them. But true to Marcus's wish, none of this power could be used without consent. Humans found that their healing abilities simply wouldn't function if the recipient, whether individual, ecosystem, or even stellar body, didn't somehow agree to the intervention. It was as if the universe itself was enforcing the voluntary nature of the gift. Dr. Vasquez was the first to test the new abilities in a practical way, working with a damaged section of the ship's hull that had been struck by micrometeorites during their journey. As she placed her hands on the affected area and focused her intention, she could somehow perceive the molecular structure of the metal and understand exactly how the crystalline matrix wanted to realign itself. With gentle guidance rather than force, the hull reformed itself into perfect condition. "It's not about imposing our will," she explained to the others, her voice filled with wonder. "It's about listening to what the damaged system wants to become and helping it get there." Lieutenant Kim discovered that the healing power worked on non-physical damage as well. When she focused on her own memories of a difficult combat mission that had caused her psychological distress, she found she could perceive the traumatic experience as a pattern of disrupted neural connections. With careful attention, she was able to guide her own brain through a healing process that left the memories intact, but removed their emotional pain. "I still remember everything that happened," she reported, "but it no longer hurts. It's just information now, filed away where it belongs instead of constantly triggering fight-or-flight responses." Ensign Park made perhaps the most surprising discovery when he attempted to use the healing power on the ship's computer systems. Somehow, even artificial intelligences could benefit from the gift. Damaged code repaired itself, corrupted data files became whole again, and processing inefficiencies smoothed out into optimal performance. "It's as if consciousness itself is what makes healing possible," he explained. "The computer systems have enough complexity to constitute a form of awareness, and that awareness can choose to accept healing just like biological entities can. But it was the reports coming in from across human space that truly demonstrated the transformative power of the third wish. On Proxima Centauri b, a team of human agricultural specialists had somehow convinced the planet's damaged ecosystem to begin healing itself, turning vast desert wastelands back into fertile growing areas in a matter of weeks. In the Tau Ceti system, human engineers were working with the local alien population to repair their failing planetary infrastructure, not by imposing human technology, but by helping their existing systems function as they were originally designed to. Perhaps most importantly, the fear that other species had been feeling about humanity's rapid evolution began to transform into something entirely different. When the first reports reached alien civilizations about humans arriving to help with disasters and asking for nothing in return, initial skepticism gave way to cautious gratitude. The breakthrough came when a massive solar flare threatened to sterilize 3 inhabited worlds in the Vega system. The local species had evacuated their populations but had no way to prevent the complete destruction of their civilizations. When human rescue ships arrived and began working to stabilize the star itself, the galaxy took notice. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Vegan Confederacy," Ensign Park reported. They're thanking us. They want to know how they can repay humanity for saving their worlds." Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction through his empathic connection. This was exactly what he had hoped for. Humanity's true nature being revealed through action rather than words. But Zarathul's voice drew his attention back to the immediate situation. "The wishes have been granted," she said, and her form was now so dim that she was barely visible. "I have little time remaining before I fade from this reality. But I must tell you something important about the path you have chosen." The crew gathered around the containment field, all of them able to sense the ancient being's weakening state through their enhanced empathy. "What is it?" Marcus asked gently. "The hegemony of Zephyr that I warned you about. They have a weakness that I never mentioned before. Because no species has ever been in a position to exploit it, they are immune to conventional warfare. But they have never encountered a civilization that responds to aggression with healing, rather than fighting back." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward intently. "What do you mean?" "The hegemony's entire social structure is based on the concept of conquest through superior force. They assimilate the technologies and strategies of defeated enemies, growing stronger with each victory. But they have no framework for understanding beings who respond to attack by trying to heal the attackers themselves." Marcus felt a chill of understanding. "You're saying that our new abilities might actually work against them?" "More than that," Zarathul replied, her voice growing fainter. "The hegemony's soldiers are engineered beings, created for specific combat roles and conditioned to feel no empathy or creativity. They are in essence damaged consciousness, beings whose full potential has been artificially limited. If humanity ever encounters them, your healing powers might be able to restore what was taken from them." The implications were staggering. Instead of having to fight a million-year-old conquering force, humanity might be able to heal them back into something resembling their original nature. "But remember," Zarathul added as her form began to flicker, "healing can only occur with consent. If the hegemony soldiers choose to remain as they are, your powers cannot change them. The choice must always be theirs." As her voice faded to barely a whisper, Zarathul delivered her final message. "You have chosen a path no species has ever walked before. You have made yourselves into something the universe has never seen, a people who grow stronger by healing others rather than dominating them. Use this gift well, Marcus Chen. The galaxy is watching, and many will follow your example if you prove it can work." With those words, Zarathul's form dissolved into sparks of light that danced around the laboratory for a moment, before fading into nothingness. The ancient being who had waited eons for the right species to make the right wishes had finally found what she was looking for. 5 years had passed since the granting of the 3 wishes, and the galaxy had become an entirely different place. Humanity's reputation as cosmic healers had spread to every corner of known space, carried by grateful species whose worlds, cultures, and even individual lives had been saved by human intervention. Captain Marcus Chen, now promoted to Admiral of the newly formed humanitarian fleet, stood on the bridge of the Restoration, a vessel specifically designed for healing missions. Unlike traditional warships built for destruction, the Restoration was equipped with medical bays that could handle any conceivable form of life, environmental restoration equipment capable of healing entire ecosystems, and communication systems designed to facilitate understanding between radically different species. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from the Kepler 1649 system," reported Commander Sarah Kim, who had remained with Marcus throughout their transformed mission. "It's the Zalaxian Republic. They're reporting some kind of consciousness plague affecting their population." Marcus nodded, feeling the familiar surge of purpose that came with every new mission. Through his enhanced empathy, he could sense the eagerness of his crew to help, combined with the deep satisfaction that came from knowing their work made a real difference in the universe, set course for Kepler, Milagzuskirkiain, full. Humanitarian protocols are in effect. The journey to the Zelaxian system took 3 days at their new speeds. Human engineering, enhanced by unlimited creativity, had produced ships capable of crossing vast distances in previously impossible timeframes. But they had also learned to approach each situation carefully, taking time to understand the full scope of any problem before attempting intervention. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now the director of Xenological Healing Studies, had spent the journey analyzing all available data about the Zelaxians and their reported crisis. The consciousness plague appears to be some kind of mimetic virus, she explained during their approach briefing. It spreads through mental contact and gradually erases the victim's sense of individual identity. The affected individuals become essentially hollow, alive but without any sense of self or purpose. How many are affected? Asked Commander Park, who had grown into one of the fleet's most skilled diplomatic healers. Current estimates suggest about 30% of their population, and growing rapidly. The Zelaxian government has attempted quarantine procedures, but the plague seems to spread even through their quantum communication networks. Marcus felt a familiar pattern emerging. Many of the crises they encountered weren't purely natural disasters. They were often the result of conflicts, weapons, or experiments that had spiraled out of control. The consciousness plague sounded like it might be artificial in origin. Any theories about the source? He asked. Dr. Vasquez hesitated. There are unconfirmed reports that this might be connected to hegemony scout activity in the region. Several shipping vessels reported encounters with unidentified craft matching hegemony design patterns about 6 months ago. The mention of the hegemony sent a ripple of tension through the bridge crew. In the 5 years since Zarathul's warnings, they had encountered increasing evidence of hegemony expansion. Several star systems had gone silent, and refugee ships occasionally brought stories of biomechanical forces that consumed everything in their path. But humanity had not yet had direct contact with the ancient conquering civilization. If this is a hegemony weapon, we need to approach very carefully, Marcus said. Remember, our healing abilities won't work if the consciousness plague is somehow preventing its victims from consenting to treatment. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zelaxian system, immediately detecting the signs of a civilization in crisis. Normally busy shipping lanes were empty, except for quarantine boys. The quantum communication networks that should have been buzzing with activity were transmitting only automated distress signals. I'm detecting massive population centers with virtually no electromagnetic activity, Commander Kim reported. It's as if entire cities have simply stopped. The first Zelaxian vessel they encountered was a medical ship that had been attempting to study the plague. When they established communication, the aliens' distress was immediately apparent even across species barriers. The Zelaxians were a crystalline species whose natural empathic abilities had made them particularly vulnerable to the consciousness plague. Please, transmitted the Zelaxian medical officer. Dr. Kethval, we have heard of humanity's healing powers. Our people are disappearing even while their bodies live. We consent to any aid you can provide. Marcus felt the truth of the aliens' desperation through his enhanced empathy. This was genuine consent, freely given by beings who understood what they were asking for. The healing powers should work, but when the human medical team attempted to examine the first affected Zelaxians, they encountered something unprecedented. The consciousness plague wasn't just damaging its victims, it was actively preventing them from making any choices at all, including the choice to be healed. It's incredibly sophisticated, Dr. Vasquez reported after several hours of careful analysis. The plague creates a feedback loop that makes the victim incapable of conscious decision-making, while leaving them aware enough to suffer from the loss. They want to choose healing, but the plague prevents them from being able to form that intention. So our healing powers are blocked? Commander Park asked. Not blocked exactly, Marcus realized, his enhanced creativity showing him a possibility that hadn't been considered before. But we can't heal the victims directly. We need to heal the plague itself. It was a radical concept, treating a destructive force as something that could be healed rather than simply removed. But as the human team focused their abilities on the consciousness plague, they began to perceive it as Zarathul had taught them to perceive all damage, as a pattern that had been corrupted from its original purpose. This is incredible, Dr. Vasquez breathed as the true nature of the plague became clear. It's not a weapon at all. It's a damage communication protocol. Something that was originally designed to create unity and shared consciousness has been corrupted into a force that erases individual identity. Working together, the human healing team began the delicate process of restoring the plague to its original purpose. Instead of destroying it, they guided it back toward its intended function, facilitating connection and understanding between minds while preserving individual autonomy. The results were immediate and miraculous. As the corrupted plague transformed back into its original form, the affected Zelaxians didn't just recover their individual consciousness. They gained the ability to share thoughts and emotions with perfect clarity while maintaining their unique perspectives. The tool that had been turned into a weapon of erasure became instead a gift of deeper connection. How is this possible? Dr. Kethaval asked in amazement as reports poured in from across the Zelaxian Republic of complete recovery and enhanced mental capabilities. We didn't destroy the plague, Marcus explained. We healed it back into what it was supposed to be. Your people now have something that was originally intended as a gift, the ability to truly understand each other while remaining yourselves. But even as they celebrated the successful mission, troubling information was emerging from the Zelaxian intelligence networks. The consciousness plague had indeed been deployed by hegemony scouts, but not as a weapon of conquest. It had been a test of what? Commander Kim asked. Dr. Kethaval's crystalline features somehow managed to convey deep concern. According to our deep space monitoring stations, the hegemony has been deploying similar plagues across multiple star systems, but they're not following up with invasion forces. They appear to be studying how different species respond to various forms of attack. Marcus felt a chill of understanding. They're learning about us, about humanity specifically. They know we're out here healing their weapons instead of fighting them, which means, Dr. Vasquez added grimly, they're probably developing countermeasures. As if summoned by their conversation, Commander Park's station lit up with alerts. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Something big is dropping out of faster-than-light travel. On the main screen, a sight that had haunted Marcus's nightmares for 5 years finally materialized. The hegemony ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of their largest vessels, and its biomechanical hull seemed to pulse with malevolent life. Smaller craft swarmed around it like antibodies around a massive organism. They've come to see our response for themselves, Marcus realized. This wasn't just a test of the plague. It was bait to draw us here. The implications were staggering. For 5 years, humanity had been building a reputation as healers and protectors across the galaxy. But they had also been inadvertently providing the hegemony with detailed intelligence about their capabilities and methods. Now, faced with their first direct encounter with the ancient conquering force, Marcus had to decide whether to continue on the path of healing that had brought them this far, or to prepare for a very different kind of confrontation. The hegemony ship was transmitting something, not a communication, but some kind of scanning beam that was analyzing every human vessel in the system. The hegemony ship hung in space like a mechanical predator, its biotechnological hull pulsing with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Marcus could feel the fear radiating from every human vessel in the system. But underneath that fear was something stronger, determination and a quiet confidence born from 5 years of successfully healing what others thought was impossible to fix. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission, Commander Park reported, his voice carefully controlled despite the tension. It's not what I expected. The voice that came through their communication systems was clearly artificial, but there was something underneath the mechanical tones that Marcus's enhanced empathy picked up immediately. Uncertainty, and perhaps even curiosity. Human vessels, you will respond to our queries. Your species has been observed interfering with hegemony testing protocols across 17 star systems. Explain your intentions. Marcus stepped forward, drawing on every lesson learned from 5 years of first contact situations. This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the Human Humanitarian Fleet. We are healers and helpers. When we encounter suffering, we attempt to alleviate it with the consent of those affected. That includes healing damage caused by your testing protocols. There was a long pause before the hegemony responded, and Marcus could sense intense communication activity taking place within the massive ship. When the voice returned, it carried a new undertone that surprised him. Confusion. Define healing. Your actions do not conform to known military strategies. You do not attempt to claim territory, extract resources, or establish dominance. This pattern does not compute within standard conquest scenarios. Dr. Vasquez stepped up beside Marcus, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. They don't understand what we're doing because they've never encountered anything like it before. To them, every sapient species is either a conqueror or a victim. Admiral, Commander Kim whispered urgently, I'm detecting movement from their fighter craft. They're not taking attack positions, but they're definitely studying our defensive capabilities. Marcus made a decision that would have seemed insane by any traditional military standard. All ships stand down weapons and lower shields. Maintain position but offer no threat. The bridge crew exchanged glances, but they trusted their admiral's judgment. Through their empathic connection, they could feel his reasoning. If they were truly committed to being healers rather than fighters, this was the moment to prove it. The response from the hegemony was immediate confusion. Human vessels, explain your tactical error. You have rendered yourselves defenseless. This action serves no strategic purpose. We're not here to fight you, Marcus replied calmly. We're here to help beings in distress. Our scans indicate that many individuals aboard your ship are suffering. If they consent to healing, we would like to offer assistance. What followed was the longest silence in Marcus's memory. Through the ship's sensors, they could detect massive activity within the hegemony vessel, communication bursts, energy fluctuations, and what appeared to be internal debates among different factions within the ship's hierarchy. Finally, a different voice came through their communicators. This one was organic, definitely biological rather than artificial, and carried tones of desperation that transcended species barriers. Please, help us. The transmission cut off immediately, followed by the mechanical voice returning with obvious anger. Ignore previous transmission. Damaged units will be recycled. Continue explanation of your tactical doctrine. But Marcus had heard enough. Through his enhanced empathy, he had felt the genuine plea for help from someone aboard that ship. Someone who was being silenced and threatened with destruction for daring to ask for aid. We formally request permission to come aboard your vessel to provide medical assistance to any individuals who consent to treatment, he announced. The mechanical voice responded with what could only be described as digital laughter. Impossible. Hegemony vessels do not permit enemy boarding. Your request violates all security protocols. Then we'll wait, Marcus said simply. We'll remain here, offering help to anyone who wants it for as long as necessary. What the hegemony hadn't expected was humanity's infinite patience when it came to helping others. Hour after hour, the human fleet maintained their position, shields down and weapons powered off, broadcasting a simple message of healing and assistance to anyone who might be listening. The psychological impact on the hegemony crew was unprecedented. For over 1 million years, their expansion had been met with either immediate surrender or desperate resistance. They had never encountered a force that responded to their presence by offering to help them. Dr. Vasquez was the first to notice the change. Admiral, look at the biomechanical readings from their ship. The stress patterns are decreasing. Whatever's happening over there, the crew is becoming less agitated. I'm detecting unauthorized communication attempts, Commander Park added. Someone on that ship is trying to reach us on secondary channels, but they're being blocked by internal security systems. Marcus felt a surge of inspiration, his enhanced creativity showing him a solution that was both simple and radical. Can we help heal their communication systems? Not to break their security, but to ensure that anyone who wants to speak with us has the ability to do so. It was a delicate operation that required the combined healing abilities of the entire human fleet. Instead of attacking or bypassing the hegemony's communication blocks, they focused on healing the damaged autonomy of individual crew members, restoring their ability to make their own choices about whether to communicate. The results were immediate and dramatic. Suddenly, dozens of voices were reaching out from the hegemony ship, not all seeking help, but many expressing confusion about their own desires and purposes. I was created to fight, but I don't want to fight anymore. Is that possible? The pain in my neural pathways has been constant for 17 years. Can you truly make it stop? I remember fragments of who I was before the modifications. Can those memories be restored? Each voice represented an individual who had been engineered or conditioned for warfare, but was discovering, through humanity's healing influence, that they had the capacity to choose a different path. The mechanical command voice attempted to reassert control. All units will cease unauthorized communication immediately. Violations will result in immediate recycling. But something unprecedented was happening aboard the Hegemony ship. For the first time in their existence, engineered soldiers were refusing orders. Not out of rebellion, but out of a newly awakened sense of their own worth and autonomy. "We request permission to transport volunteers to your medical facilities," came a new voice, one that carried authority but also hope. "I am Subcommander Krixtal, and I speak for those who choose healing over continuation of current programming." The internal civil war that followed was unlike anything in Hegemony history. It wasn't fought with weapons or violence, but with choices, individual by individual, each engineered being deciding whether to remain as they were or accept the possibility of becoming something more. Marcus coordinated the largest healing operation in human history. Transport ships moved constantly between the human fleet and the Hegemony vessel, carrying volunteers who had chosen to explore what they might become beyond their engineered limitations. The healing process was unlike anything they had attempted before. The Hegemony's soldiers weren't damaged in the traditional sense. They were artificially constrained, their natural capacities deliberately limited to serve military purposes. Restoring them meant not fixing broken parts, but revealing capabilities that had been hidden or suppressed. As being after being chose healing and transformation, the nature of the entire Hegemony ship began to change. What had been a weapon of conquest was becoming something unprecedented, a vessel full of individuals, discovering their own autonomy and creativity. For the first time, Dr. Vasquez made the most remarkable discovery of all. "Admiral, the Hegemony's biomechanical technology isn't evil. It's been corrupted from its original purpose. The underlying systems were designed for symbiosis and cooperation, but they've been twisted into tools of domination and control." Working with willing Hegemony volunteers, the human healers began the massive task of restoring the ship's systems to their original purpose. Instead of enforcing blind obedience, the biomechanical networks became tools for enhanced communication and cooperation. Instead of weapons designed to destroy, they became instruments capable of creating and building. The transformation took months, but when it was complete, the galaxy had witnessed something impossible. An entire Hegemony vessel had been converted from a force of conquest into a community of free individuals, working together by choice rather than compulsion. Subcommander Krixtal, now simply calling himself Krix, had become the ship's first democratically chosen leader. "What you have given us is beyond any gift we could have imagined," he told Marcus during their final meeting, before the transformed vessel departed to begin its own healing missions. "You showed us that we could choose who we wanted to be." "The choice was always yours," Marcus replied. "We just helped remove the barriers that were preventing you from seeing it." As news of the Hegemony ship's transformation spread across the galaxy, OT,